Today I'm going to go through the heritage recipe of bread and butter pickles passed down through my family. Stay tuned and we'll go through that right now. At the end of cucumber season, or sometimes in the middle of cucumber season, you find watermelon-sized cucumbers in your patch. This size cucumber is what I use for my baby dill recipe, which I love. I've got a recipe below if you want to check that out. And then we have cucumbers we leave for slicers for eating on salad. Once I pick out my baby dills and set those aside, then I'm left with these other cucumbers. I can easily use this size for slicers on salad. That's really good too. And then you have the watermelons. Oh my, I didn't see that under those leaves. If you had that happen, let me know. And you want to make sure you get these off the plant. Don't leave them on because it will diminish the plant's ability to produce and start telling them to go to sleep since they think that the seeds are already done. We already know what to do with the good cucumbers if it's pickling or slicers for a salad. What we're going to go through today is what to do with the bad and the ugly. So this is bad because it's going to destroy the plant if you don't get it off. And they get to be kind of seedy, so you'd want to cut it in half and dig the seeds out. And then you have these ugly ones. And sometimes when I'm doing pickling, I have excessive amount of slicers. Today we're going to make bread and butter pickles, is what the pioneers used to use with the leftovers. Pioneers in the United States and probably the old world folks used the bread and butter pickles as means of barter when they didn't have money, and they would often take what they had available to go barter at the stores and trade for things like bread and butter, things they would not have had. Here I have washed all of the cucumbers up that I'm going to start, and now I'm going to start slicing them up and getting them ready for the brine. So here I have all of the cucumbers sliced and ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is add the salt. So for every 6 cups of sliced cucumbers and onion, if you have onion in yours, you need to use a 1/4 cup of pickling salt, and we are going to lasagna layer them. So I placed about half of the cucumbers on the bottom, and I am going to sprinkle a 1/4 cup of pickling salt on these. Don't worry about all the salt. We're going to rinse them off. This is just to sweat the cucumbers and loosen them up. We'll put another layer in here. Here we're going to sprinkle some more. I pre-measured. This is a triple batch. This is a triple batch, and I did pre-measure the salt. So I have it kind of available, which is kind of nice. I'm going to layer this last bunch in here. And like I said, you could add onion in here too. I am out of onions, so I'm going to do this batch without onions. I like to use red onion mainly. And so now I'm going to add some crushed ice as well. This helps in helping it break down. I'm going to put a little bit more in there. Here's some more crushed ice. Again, if you don't have access to crushed ice, go ahead and use just regular ice. I'm going to put a plate on top, and I'm going to put a weight on this, and then I'm going to put this in the refrigerator for 4 to 6 hours. A lot of times doing this overnight is recommended, and today I'm pretty busy, so I'm going to come back tomorrow and finish this process. Now what we need to do is drain these and rinse them off to get the excess salt off them so they don't taste too salty. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to use a very large colander for this. My over the sink one is just not going to be big enough. So I'm going to put a large colander down here, and I'm going to grab them by hand and move them in here. After setting in the brine overnight, they're very flexible, as you can see. And that's exactly what we want. Now, if I had put red onion in or purple onion in, the onion would be coming out at the same time because it would have mixed. For a cake, this is actually a lid for a cake carrier, but it works really good for this process. So I like it a lot. So now I'm going to turn my water on here. I want to get as much, run as much water through here as I can. Just going to run water through there. Now, if you don't want soft pickles, and this, I did want soft pickles, if you want them to be a little bit more firm, you wouldn't do this brine step. You would simply cut them and put them into the jars. I like them to be like Grandma used to make, old, flexible cucumber slices. So we're going to give this another rinse. We're going to come through here and we're going to dump this out again. And you could do this process 2 or 3 times. Just really make sure you're getting all the extra salt off them. I'm going to go ahead and measure these. And I'm going to can in pint jars. So 1 pint is 2 cups. So I just need to figure out how many I need. My brine recipe is for 6 cups. So we want to kind of get that measured up and go from there. Here I have 12 cups of measured cucumbers that are ready to go that we've already leached most of the water out of them. So they reduced in half overnight. You really want to know how many cups of sliced cucumbers you have that are going to go in the brine bath. That way you can prepare your jars as you do this next step. So I had 12 cups. That means I am going to need 6 jars, and I'll put a 7th jar in because I always know I may have a little extra. I'm going to go heat 7 pint jars in my new canner while I continue to work on the pickling brine. So this is my new canner and I absolutely love it because I can get a whole bunch of jars in at the same time. Also, it has a wire rack in it that keeps the jars from cracking, so they're not going to sit on the bottom. And I decided today I'm going to sterilize my jars in the canner itself versus doing it in the dishwasher, which is what I usually do. I just want to make sure the jars are hot right up until the time, and I didn't have time to get them in the dishwasher. So they were cleaned ahead of time, and then they're simply just soaking in this hot water that's coming to a boil. Cautionary tales: you want to make sure you protect your countertop from the brine we're going to be using today, which has turmeric and mustard seed in it, and it's going to be very yellow in color. You want to protect the area wherever you may set a spoon, ladle, or where you're going to be pouring the brine into the jars. So I'm going to put the recipe on screen. I'm making a double batch, but I'm going to tell you the recipe right now. A single batch will make about 5 pints, and we're going to be doubling that today because I think I have enough cucumbers for a double batch. The brine recipe for 6 cups of cucumbers, which you've sweated, which is what that is, sweating. I couldn't remember the name earlier, sorry. You're sweating the water out of the cucumbers and onion if you have onion in yours. So it's 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of mustard seed, 1 teaspoon of celery seed, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, and 3 cups of apple cider vinegar. And today I'm making a double batch, so everything has been doubled. But I'll put the single batch for 6 cups of sweated cucumbers on screen for you. So we're going to pour this in the pan, and I like to start by putting the sugar in first, and then pouring in the apple cider vinegar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up on the stove, and we want all that sugar to be dissolved before we add the cucumbers in. Once the brine comes to a boil, we will add the cucumbers in and stir them, and then we're going to simmer the cucumbers in the brine for about 10 minutes to be able to get the absorption process started. So let's move to the stove and get cooking. Here we can see the brine, and it's clearly boiling, and I like to use a whisk to make sure that I have all of the ingredients well stirred and nothing sticking. Because this has a lot of sugar in it, you want to make sure that you keep stirring this. You don't let it go too long. And then I've got a plate over here, as you can see, because I've had too many times of staining my countertop without having something to protect it. Next thing we do is if we're taking the cucumbers, I'm going to be using my spaghetti spoon and lifting the cucumbers. I'm going to be lifting the prepared cucumbers into the brine so it doesn't splatter. Then we're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. And you don't want to dump the water. So this is the excess water. You don't want to dump that in there. You don't want to dilute your brine in any way. So you can see I've got the cucumbers in the brine. I'm going to push them down to make sure that they are covered. If I measured correctly, I will have made enough brine. Otherwise, you may have to make some additional brine. You want them fully covered. So now we're going to just let it simmer in this brine for 10 minutes. Welcome back. So I have really hot jars, really hot lids and rings, and hot pickles to start canning. First thing I do is use my spaghetti fork to get the pickles in there more so than the brine. And then I'll come back and I'll cover them with the brine. So cucumbers first, and then you're going to want a spoon. You're going to want a spoon to help make sure you've got them going down in there. And then come back and see where I may need to add some more. You can see on this jar here, I got a void, so I'm going to add a little bit more in there. Because the pickles are different sizes, it may take some finagling to get them in the jars. But again, years ago I used to do this by ladling everything in right away, and then I had a mess because the cucumbers would settle. So I've learned to do it this way and use a potato fork, or a slotted spoon would work too, to get them down in there. And you want to work somewhat fast. Anything that deals with canning, keeping everything really hot is pretty critical for food safety. And the vinegar will do the rest once you get it sealed up, as long as your jars are nice and clean. And I think I mentioned I got a towel down to protect the countertop. I just slapped a pickle so you can see it can get kind of messy. So now it's time to add the brine. So I'm going to get rid of my spaghetti fork and put it on a plate to keep it off my counter so it doesn't stain. And we are simply going to ladle in the brine over the top of the cucumbers. And we're going to do it kind of slowly. And when I pour the brine in, I'm looking at the bottom of my funnel and I'm seeing the brine come up just into the funnel. That way I know I'm covered the way that way I know they're covered the way I want. And you want to leave a 1/4 inch of headspace in so that the air in the jar has room to escape. See it bubbling out? And again, I'm moving pretty fast. Again, I want everything to be hot. You can see the brine is hot, the jars are hot, the cucumbers were pretty hot. I've got my water bath boiling in the background. And when I get done getting the cucumbers in here, make sure I got most of the air pockets out of them. You kind of look down the side of the jars, make sure you got the air pockets out. It's a very sticky brine, so we want to make sure that we wipe the lids off, or the tops of the jars, and to get that brine off there. Sweet pickles, or bread and butter pickles, is what we're going to call these today, is a very labor-intensive job, but they taste amazing, and it's well worth the work, especially if you want to do heritage-style cooking, which I enjoy doing. Now that we have that done, we are going to put the lids and the rings on. These are very hot. Pick one at a time up. I want to get the lids on as quickly as possible here. And now we want to put the lids on. And when we put the lids on, we only want to finger tighten them. We want to, again, make sure that that air can escape. So yeah, don't crank them down. You want to make sure the air can get out of there. Then we're going to move these to the water bath, and we're going to leave them in the water bath for 15 minutes. If it was a quart-sized jar, I would do it for 18. But these are pints, so we're going to put them in the water bath for 15 minutes. Let's do that, and we'll be right back. Here you can see the pint jars are submerged within the water bath. And the key is to make sure that you have enough water in there to cover the lids, and the air will escape out the sides. Here we are back after 15 minutes in the water bath. The lids have not fully sealed yet. The lids will suck down. There'll be a distinctive pop noise letting you know the lids have sealed. Sometimes I've been in bed late at night and I can hear the pop and I'm like, good. Having all your jars sealed is pretty critical since this is quite a labor-intensive process. Last but not least, don't forget to label your jars. Don't be that person that goes to the pantry and says, oh, I didn't put a date on that. When did I make those? Yeah, don't let that be you. That's right, don't forget that step. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up so YouTube knows to share this content with others. Also check my Garden to Table playlist in the description below. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.